In the heart of Snow Paulo, there's a place called Vale Iscuro, Dark Valley. It's not marked on tourist maps, and even locals refuse to say its name after sunset. In 1996, 3 biology students, Leandro, Patricia, and Renato, went there to study nocturnal animal behavior as part of a university project. They set up camp near an old trail known as the Morro do Galo Cego. Locals used to say it was cursed, but the students didn't care. They should have. Silence. Not peaceful silence. Unnatural. No owls. No insects. Not even frogs. Just stillness. Patricia said the forest felt like it was watching. They found barefoot footprints in the mud. Human. Deep. Clear. Going up the hill. And then vanishing. Leandro joked.
Maybe Bigfoot went skinny dipping.
Nobody laughed. At 2:14 a.m., it began. A scream. Long, sharp, unnatural, human, but broken. Then another. Exactly 60 seconds later. Then again, and again. Renato tried to record it on his mini tape recorder, but all he captured was static. They couldn't sleep. They couldn't move. They just listened. Each scream seemed closer. At dawn, Leandro decided to follow the footprints up the hill. He wore a helmet cam. He said he'd be back in 30 minutes. He didn't. Renato and Patricia found him 2 hours later, curled on the ground, shaking, covered in mud, eyes wide open. The camera was gone.
What happened?
He screams, so the thing doesn't wake up.
Who?
The thing underneath, he's holding it in.
They left the forest the same day. The audio recording was sent to a technician who discovered strange low-frequency patterns hidden in the static, like a voice, speaking backwards. Today, that trail is closed, not officially, but spiritually. Locals have a warning. If you hear him scream, don't answer, and never, ever scream back. In the Amazon, some places are not meant to be found, not by humans. In 2011, 2 brothers, Tiago and Miguel, were hiking through the dense trails of Jao National Park, a massive and untouched stretch of forest in the Amazon. They weren't adventurers or scientists, just curious men with cameras and a deep love for isolation. They would soon regret that curiosity.
Day 3 and no jaguars. The forest is being kind to us.
Tiago said.
Or maybe it's waiting for nightfall.
Miguel answered. On the 4th day, deep in an unmarked trail, they saw it. A small wooden house. Perfect condition, except it had no windows, no doors. Used a smooth, perfect surface of aged timber, as if the house had grown straight from the forest. Miguel tried to knock. No sound, no echo. It felt wrong. They circled the structure. No gaps, no openings, no signs of life. Then Tiago touched the wood and pulled his hand back, shocked. It was ice cold. In the middle of the Amazon, they marked the area with red tape and left. But the next morning, the tape was gone. So was the house, Miguel asked.
Are we lost?
No, I know this path. It was here.
They checked the GPS data and went back home. A few days later, they showed the coordinates to a local guide. The old man frowned. The guide replied, his voice low and serious.
That's a cursed patch. The hunters don't go there, no one does.
What is it?
Some say the house appears to those who are close to death.
The guide replied, his face filled with fear.
That's nonsense.
Miguel replied, shrugging it off.
It's not nonsense if it's waiting for you.
The guide barked, clearly furious. A week later, Miguel disappeared. No sign of violence, no break-in. His gear was all at home. Only one thing was missing, his GPS device. Tiago, haunted by guilt, returned to the forest the year after, alone. He never came back, but a park ranger claimed he saw a man standing motionless in front of a wooden wall, deep in the forest, just staring. The forest keeps what it wants. Some doors don't need to open, because what's inside is already outside. Some legends are born from fear, others from something much older than fear. In 2003, in the rural zone of Rondônia, Brazil, a man named Raul was returning home from work on his old bicycle. He took a shortcut through a narrow dirt path that cut deep into the forest, the kind of place where even the air feels heavy. As he rode, the back tire blew out with a loud pop. No signal, no lights, no one around. He decided to push the bike the rest of the way. That was when he saw the figure. At first he thought it was a scarecrow. It stood perfectly still in the middle of the path. Tall, human-shaped, its entire body from head to toe was covered in cracked, dried mud. No eyes, no mouth, just two dark holes where a nose should be. Raul whispered to himself.
What the hell is that?
He stepped back. The figure took a step forward, without lifting its feet. It slid across the ground like it was part of the forest itself. Then the sounds began. Branches cracking, all around him. Like the forest was waking up. Raul ran. He dropped the bicycle, stumbled over roots, scraped his arms on the trees. Behind him, no footsteps, only breathing, a low, wet breathing, full of mud and soil. He got home shaking, locked the doors. The next morning, he returned to the path with neighbors. They found the bicycle, but in the mud near it were footprints, not human, not animal. They looked like roots. Over the following weeks, Raul fell ill. Doctors said it was mold, but his skin started to change, thick, rough, like bark. He moved away, disappeared. 15 years later, during a flood in that same forest, authorities discovered something buried at the base of an ancient tree. A human figure, dried, preserved. Its feet had merged with the tree's roots. They say, the forest remembers, and when it does, it brings you back. Not as you were, but as part of it, forever. There are places in the city where even crime dares not go. In one of Rio de Janeiro's oldest favelas, perched on a hill above the train tracks, there's a zone called Morro Seco, dry hill. No police, no traffic, not even graffiti. A place forgotten, or maybe left behind on purpose. Decades ago, in the 1970s, a small chapel was built at the very top. It was meant to bring peace to a struggling community, but during a violent thunderstorm, the chapel caught fire and collapsed. Witnesses said it wasn't lightning. They saw something moving inside the flames, something that didn't run. After that night, the hill changed. Dogs stopped barking near it. Radios picked up static. Children disappeared. Their voices still echo through the alleys. Over the next 40 years, the area was abandoned. The homes remain, but no one lives in them. They rot silently, draped in vines and ash. Residents still talk about the eyes, pale, glowing orbs that watch from windows with no glass. They never blink. They don't reflect light. They simply look. In 2019, a man named Gustavo decided to investigate. He ran a small urban exploration channel. Views had been low. He wanted something viral. He brought a drone, thermal cameras, and 2 GoPros. He entered Morro Seco at 4:12 p.m. At 5:45 p.m., the drone went up. The footage showed sagging rooftops, burned out buildings, and at the center, a blackened ruin, the chapel. As the drone hovered over it, a cold reading flashed on screen, about 48 degrees Fahrenheit in Rio, at dusk. That shouldn't be possible. Then, in the upper right corner of the screen, movement. Not a person, not an animal. A figure emerged from the shadows, standing upright, with no face, where its eyes should have been. Twin orbs of pale light. The camera zoomed in, the image distorted. The signal collapsed. Gustavo was never seen again. 2 days later, a security patrol found a phone on the edge of the hill. Inside, only one photo remained, a blurry image, a rooftop, and ... someone on it, but not Gustavo. It looked like a child, but the head was turned backwards. Some say Gustavo never left, that Moro Seco doesn't kill people. It takes something from them and replaces it. Their voice, their face, their soul. At night, from the bottom of the hill, you can still hear crying. It sounds like children, but the voices are ... off. They repeat, same pitch, same timing, like a loop. No one climbs Moro Seco anymore. Even the gangs stay away. Because when the chapel fell, something else stood up, and it never went back down. In the heart of Brazil's scorched northeast, far from towns and forgotten by time, lies the remains of an old coal mine. Locals call it Minas de Candeia, but no one remembers who Candeia was. They only remember the fire and the screams. The mine shut down in the late 1980s, after a collapse killed 14 workers. Officially, it was recorded as an accident, but survivors said something was wrong, that the mine hadn't just collapsed, it had swallowed them. They spoke of strange tunnels that weren't on any maps, of voices echoing through stone, and of lights, soft, pulsing glows that flickered deep underground, far from the lanterns. None of them went back. Years passed. The entrance was sealed with concrete and iron. The land dried. The town around it withered. But one thing didn't stop: the heat. Locals said the ground stayed warm, even in the dead of night. Sometimes, when it rained, steam would rise from the earth. They called it a cursed vein, a wound that never closed. In 2022, a geologist named Elias was sent to the region to investigate strange thermal readings. He didn't believe in stories, only in data. He arrived alone, with a heat scanner and a drone, determined to locate the thermal source. On his first night, he camped near the mine. The ground was so hot, it warped his equipment. The temperature beneath the sealed entrance reached over 154 degrees Fahrenheit. That shouldn't be possible, unless ... something was still burning below. At 3:11 a.m., he heard the knocking. Not loud, just steady, like a fist, on metal. He dismissed it as soil shifting, but the knocking came again. Then footsteps, faint, echoing, coming from beneath the ground. The next day, he flew his drone over the hills, scanning the terrain. He found something impossible, a narrow shaft, hidden under rubble, still open. The drone descended. Walls blackened by soot, symbols etched into stone, not Portuguese, not Latin. Elias followed. He brought a body cam and a breathing mask. Inside, the air shimmered with heat, and the deeper he went, the colder he felt. Not temperature, something internal, emotional, hollow. 200 meters down, he found the first mark, a wall scratched with fingernails, then bones, burned, but untouched by time, perfectly preserved, as if they hadn't died decades ago, as if they had just been left there. His footage caught something else, a shadow that didn't belong to him, moving when he stood still. Then, the whispering started. From the walls, from the floor, calling his name. Elias fled. He dropped his camera, but made it out. He never spoke of what he saw, but 3 weeks later, a heat wave hit the town, the worst in recorded history. The epicenter was the mine. Locals said the wind smelled like sulfur and burning teeth. Birds died mid-flight. Children fainted. No one stayed. Today, the land around Minas de Candeia is cracked and blackened. No plants grow, no animals wander, just heat and silence. But sometimes, if you place your ear to the earth, you'll hear it, knocking, scratching, breathing. The mine never closed, it just got deeper. Whatever lives below is still digging, and one day, it will reach us. Carnival in Salvador is not just a party, it's a storm, a fever dream of drums and sweat, colors and masks, where the living forget they are mortal, just for a while. But in places like that, things forgotten come to the surface, and not all of them are human. It was the last night of carnival. The beaches were still wet from the afternoon storm. Salt and beer mixed in the air. Vendors shouted. Fireworks crackled. And beneath it all, deep beneath the waves, something moved. On Praia do Buraco, near a forgotten stretch of coast, a bonfire had been lit. Not for celebration, but for a ritual. No tourists, no music, only a circle of women in white, chanting in a dialect that predated Portuguese. Their leader was tall and still. Her face was covered in ash. Her hands never moved, but her shadow twisted like it was alive. She dropped something into the fire, a small cloth doll, soaked in dark liquid. The flames turned green. That was when the beach changed. No one saw it, but everyone felt it. The drums in the distance lost rhythm. Laughter became slower. The sea pulled back, not with tide, but with fear. By dawn, something was wrong with the crowd. People danced too slowly. Their eyes didn't blink. Their hands twitched as if pulled by invisible strings. And in the center of it all was a young woman who had gone into the water the night before. She was dry, but her skin had turned gray, her eyes pale and milky. She walked without bending her knees, and when people touched her, they smiled too much. Their lips cracked, their teeth darkened. By afternoon, the infection had spread. Vendors gave food without blinking. Children stopped crying. Even the animals changed. Dogs stopped barking and started staring at the sea. Birds circled above, but never landed. It wasn't a sickness. It was devotion. They were being turned not into corpses, but into servants, bound to the thing that had risen from beneath the waves. People who resisted it began to sweat ash. Their hair fell out in strands. Their fingernails cracked. And still, they smiled, as if something inside them was already gone. One tourist, a man from Chicago, uploaded a video. He filmed a crowd standing in the surf at night, shoulder deep in water. They were chanting something with no known language. At the center was the woman in gray, but now her body was bending backward, like a bridge, bones cracking, skin splitting, but she didn't bleed. She shed sand. The video disappeared an hour later. His account was deleted. No one heard from him again, but the footage remains, circulating in forums, whispered about in threads. The legend is growing. The city never acknowledged what happened that year. The beaches reopened, carnival returned, but some say that every year since, there's always one woman in the crowd, wearing white, walking barefoot, carrying a small doll soaked in oil. They say she stops near the water just before dawn, and anyone who looks at her too long begins to forget their name, begins to walk without blinking, begins to smile too wide. It's not death, it's not possession, it's a blessing, a gift from something older than religion, something that lives beneath the tide, and feeds on rhythm, on trance, on chaos. This isn't a haunting, it's a procession, and it's still going. Each year, each carnival, more gray eyes, more dolls in the sand, and more feet that never leave the beach again.